Today we're in a flat world, as you can see. We're going to be going over basic commands and a little bit of command blocks. Okay, so you might see me refer to my book a little bit later today, just to keep track of all the stuff. It shouldn't be too long of a video, but it might be a little bit longer than usual. First, we're going to start with the very basics. It has nothing to do with commands, at least not in the very basic level. So most of you probably know this, but just for those who don't, maybe Minecraft noobs, excuse the chat. Let's see, we got our X coordinate right here. Now this is our location on our east to west location, I think. So we move this direction, it goes down because we're headed west. Now if you move this direction, it goes up because we're headed east. Now that helps people know where you are in the world. Now our next one is our Y coordinate. This tells us where we are in relative to the ground and up high. So we go down, it'll go down. We go up, it'll go up. And for most players, you can only ever get up to about 255 unless you use some bug or something, in survival anyway. Then you go down to 0, and then you'll go down to negative if you break bedrock and fall through. And then eventually you'll die. But next we got this one here. This is just like our X coordinate. And I guess Y coordinate too, but you go this direction and this direction. Same thing. Now this can be useful in commands for like teleporting. This is a basic command. We can do. We can go to 0, 56, 0. Now this coordinate right here will become 0 because we'll go to 0. We'll move that direction. We'll move forward. And then we'll move right or left. I don't know which. Or maybe I've got it backwards, but we'll basically move to 0 on this one too, and we'll leave this one the same so we don't end up just above bedrock. We need to still be on the surface. So now if you look at our chords, Minecraft does this thing that teleports us to half a block, so that way we're right in the center of the block and not in the corner. Anyway, those are just very basic, but you can use these a lot in Minecraft. Now this is where it gets tricky. You guys probably all know your coordinates, but if you do tildes. Now, before we were doing it relative to 0, 0, 0. And that's at the bottom of the world in this very location. But now we're going to be teleporting. Well, actually, it's more of in this corner in the bottom. But now we're going to be teleporting relative to ourselves and not 0, 0, 0. So our X coordinate will be this plus whatever else we give it. So we'll do plus 3. Oh, hang on. Now we teleported 3 blocks to the left. You can't really tell because we're in a sandstone world, but if you look at our coordinates, you notice we're at 3 to the left. Now, if we do this again, you might think, well, we'll just go back to 3.5 or whatever, but no, we'll go to 6.5 because that's what Minecraft does. That's what this whole tilde thing is about. This is relative to ourselves. Now, if we do this will not teleport us to 5 blocks in the ground, but it'll teleport us 5 blocks upwards. Same can be said for negative. We'll be teleported 5 blocks downwards, and so forth. Same with this one, 1 block to the left, whatever. That's pretty much all you need to know with coordinates. They're very basic. I'm sure a lot of you already knew it, but let's go on to the next thing. We got targeting now. So, let's see. I'm going to get my little buddy, the creeper. We're not really friends, but okay, this will be helpful. So if I do TP tilde 50, this will teleport me 50 blocks up, and if I were in survival I'd die. But let's say I want to teleport this creeper 50 blocks up, so he'll die because nobody likes a creeper. How are we supposed to do that? Now if I were a player, I could type the bench. If the creeper were a player, I could type the benjol here, or not here, over here. It's not necessary, but that teleports me up. Now if I type creeper, this won't work. Now, if a player by the name of Creeper were online, it would teleport that person up there. But Creeper, he just doesn't play by the rules. He's an entity. So we'll do. This is called targeting. We're gonna do all entities. Now that's what the E stands for, entities. And if we do this, you can do type equals Creeper. Now this might be a lot at once for those of you who've never done any commands. This is an @ sign, in case you ever want to do this. The type, this is the type of entity. And if I could do type skeleton, type player, type arrow, type item frame, type spider, you know, whatever has an AI or isn't a block pretty much, this will affect. So teleport just creepers 50 blocks in the air. And now we've got a creeper bomb. Yep. So there's not just all entities, there is also all players. Now, of course, creeper is not a player, so this will be all players. Now, if I had other players in the world, this would happen to them too. Now, let's say I just wanted to teleport myself up 50 blocks in the air. Well, I would do @P. Now, that's the nearest player. Now, when you do @P, when you're typing the command, this is relative to yourself. It's the closest player to yourself. Now, if we put this in a command block, it would be the closest player to the command block. But if you're typing this, then it'll always be you. You'll always be the closest person to you, of course. So we'll just teleport in the air. Now, there's also one more, @random. Now, this just applies to players unless you do type equals whatever. So, I think so. That's how it works anyway. I could be wrong on that. Don't quote me. Now, this teleports a random player in the air. So if I had another player on, it could be either me or the other person. It doesn't matter. So that's also pretty basic. Let's move on to the slightly more complex stuff. So we'll do give @P ourselves. We could also put our name here, but I'm not going to. And we keep this. Now, if you press tab, it'll autofill the command for you. It's nice, in case you didn't know that. So now we're going to go over the command block types. Let's see, we got the basic one. Now, this has been around since 1.7 or maybe 1.6. I'm pretty sure it's 1.7 though. I could be wrong. This is the impulse type. We just used to call them command blocks, but these were added in 1.9. They also added 3 other buttons. Now, before they always needed redstone, but you can also make them not need redstone. So this changes the type of command blocks. We're going to leave it at impulse for now. This doesn't matter so much for this command block, but this one does. So this command will only run when you give it a redstone signal. So we can just put a button on it right here. There we go. If I do say hello, press this button, watch the chat, hello. Okay, pretty cool, pretty simple. If we turned off redstone, it'll do it all the time. Now, this will only run once. That's the thing about the impulse command block. What if I wanted to make it happen like a lot? Let's say I always want it to be active. I could put a button on here, and I could just spam the button after we put it back to needs redstone. A stone button would be more effective here, but you get my point. There's also another type of command block. There's 2 more, actually. There's the repeating one. Now, this is just the same as the other one, except it's purple, and it acts slightly different. This one has the same buttons. If I do this, you'll notice something different right off the bat. Okay? If you were to count these, you'd count exactly 20. Or maybe not. I don't know how long this thing... If this button lasted 1 second, then it would be 20. But this happens once. This is the same thing as this one, except it doesn't... When it has a redstone signal, it doesn't power once. It powers once every tick. Now, for those of you who don't know, a tick is 1/20th of a second. Now, that's how Minecraft runs all its time. Now, you can't get any more detailed than that. So this runs once every tick, or 20 times a second. So if this was a second, it would run 20 times. Now, if we could put a lever on here, just non-stop flooding the chat. I'm gonna get rid of that, actually. Or I can put always active, same thing. But that just runs 20 times a second. That can be very useful at times. We also have one more. I'm going to put this one behind it, because that's kind of what this one's all about. It's called a chain command block. Now, say we do say 1, and it needs redstone. Same thing, right? Just put that here. We'll put does not need redstone on this, and you'll see why in a second. If I do this, it says 1. Now, if I do say 2, you notice it doesn't go off the bat like this one would. If I put a command block over here that did say 2, and always active, immediately it would say 2. But this one's different. This one will only run when the one facing into it runs. Now, for all of you even slightly observant players out there, you'll notice that there are arrows on the command blocks. Now, the circle is where it's facing, and I think there's a square in the back, yeah. And basically, the arrows just face where it's directing to. So now, this points into this one. Now, that means this one will say 2 at the same time, like you just really saw. So this one goes first, and then 1 tick later, this one goes. Now, if we could put one of these things right here onto this, and press this button, you notice that this one did 20 times a second too. This one right here would go, and then this one 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 would go, and that happened 20 times, or however long this button lasts. So it doesn't matter what's behind it. It could be another chain block, like we do, say, 3, and then we do, say, 4, and we change this one to impulse 1. So now if we do this one, it'll do, say, 4, 3, and then 2, like you'll see in the chat, just like that. That's what the chain command block does. It's just only runs when the one behind it runs. Now let's say, like we had this before, this is when this stuff right here is really complicated when it comes to this. I mean, it works just the same way, but you could be surprised. So I'm actually going to put this button right here. If I do say 1, press this button, it does 1 too. Now let's say I change this to need redstone. This one will still say 1, but this one won't. Now if you give this one a redstone signal, it'll say 1 too. Actually, yeah. It's pretty simple, but compared to the other ones, it's a little bit more complicated. Normally when you're doing chain command blocks, though, you usually have it on always active, unless you're doing something a little bit more complicated. Alright, those are all the different command block types. Let's see. Let's go on to commands. Alright, there are lots of different commands in the game. Like I said earlier, if you press tab, it makes a list of whatever can go there. Now, there's default game mode. That's a very basic one. It changes what your game mode is by default when you join the world. There's also, we're going to go over some basic ones. So there's /message. There's also /tell. And I think there might be one more, but they basically do the exact same thing. I don't know why they added multiple ones in. So we're going to message a player. Now if we do /message, it'll tell us what's wrong. So we're going to do, this one actually work, because you're not allowed to message yourself, but you just want to talk to your friend on a server. If you do /msg, the Benjul, I want to talk to myself and say, hey, well, you can send a message to yourself, but if there were another player on, then that player would get my message if I made their name there. So that's easily the most basic one in the game. Well, the syntax isn't quite as basic, but the result is. Now, game mode, this is, I'm sure all of you know this one, 100%. Like, if you don't know this one, then you've been playing the game for one day, right? This one just changes your game mode. Now, what people don't know is that there's actually a lot more to it. Well, one more thing to it. You can do /game mode. Of course, this is very basic. I'm sure a lot of you didn't know this, but 1 is creative, 0 is survival, or you can just type it in. But I could do 0, and that would make me in survival. I could also do like other player name here, right? Other player. That other player would now have being game mode 0 as well. So that one's really basic too. And there's also /TP. Now this one's a little bit more complicated. You see this? There's 2 different ones, and that's intentional. So this one is the one right here that this is the one we're going to be going over right now. There's /TP, and you notice how there's square brackets? Let's go over this one first. Square brackets just means it's optional. Now, if we do /TP, destination player, we're going to teleport myself to me. This would be a lot easier with another person on, but I teleported myself to myself. Now, let's say I want to teleport some other player to me. I do other player to myself right here, or I could put @p here. That would work too, and that other player would come to me. Except you can't use that p usually when it comes to TP, I think. Anyway, there's that's one a lot of people know, but this one right here, this one's a little bit different. I have no clue what this is. I had no clues in the game, so just ignore that part. You can teleport to coordinates, or you can teleport a player to coordinates. So I'm going to teleport to 0, 0, 0, like we did earlier. That part you all saw. Now there's also, you can also just put your name here. Now I'm only going over this because this one's a little bit different. There's square brackets in front of it. You only ever see square brackets usually at the very end, like this. But in TP, I think this is the only one that lets you put it in front. That's because a name isn't ever the same as coordinates, so we can do like that. Anyway, so that way you can teleport yourself, or you can teleport other player. I just thought it was a little bit neat, and you guys might need to know it. let's go over a little bit more advanced commands now that some of you might not know how to do. I'm going to start with fill. We'll use the command blocks there, it doesn't matter. Let's say I want to have a big box of stone. I don't know what this is together, but we'll just do this. Now, fill, if we type it in, it'll give us an error code. We have x1, y1, and z1, and x2, y2, and z2, and the name. Now, this might be a little confusing, but it's really not. So we'll do /fill. And now we gotta put in the coordinates. Now if you press tab as of 1.9 I think, or maybe 1.8, you can just look at the blocks and you don't have to type it in. So that gives you the coordinates. Now it won't work yet, we have to put in the x2, y2, and z2. Now we're still missing one thing. These things mean they have to be in there. These ones do not have to be in there. That's why they're square brackets. So let's say we want stone. Now we got a big box of stone. Tells you how many blocks you filled. There is a limit, but it's like a few thousand blocks, I think. So you shouldn't, unless you're doing a giant blocks, you should be fine. But let's say I want to be able to go in this box. It's solid all the way through. Well, actually, let's say I want a granite box. Well, if you look here, it says data value. I don't know if you guys know this, but stone is stone. That makes sense. Of course, you'll know that. But did you know that granite is also stone? And polished granite is stone. They're all the same block type. Minecraft stone right there. But you see over here, I can't really show you, but there's a 2 after the 0001. That's stone, and then the /2, that means polished granite. I don't like granite. Let's go with polished diorite. So that's a 4. So we're gonna just replace this with 4, and boom, you got a diorite here. Now, so of course, will only work up to, this is 6. Now if I do 6, boom. If I do 7, it'll just go back to stone. 8 is also stone. There is no other way to do it past 6. Now there's some different block types, like wool has a ton. There's like 16 of them in total, because there's 16 type of wool. But like glass and lapis lazuli ore are not the same block. The glass is 20 and lapis is 21. So we can just put, we'll just leave it as this. Now, of course, this isn't a house yet. I can't go inside. Not that it would be a very good house, but say I want to go inside. Well, there's more to it than just this. There is replace. Now, this can be destroyed. That means it'll destroy everything in it and act like you broke it with your own fist or whatever, and you can get the blocks back. There's keep, which keeps whatever else is here. So let's say I put this in here. Well, if I do this, it gets rid of it. But if I do keep, it won't. Now if I do this, then boom, that'll fit, but it keeps whatever else is in here. There are a few other ones, like outline and hollow. We're going to do hollow right now. Hollow. See this? Now I can go in the inside, except it's not quite tall enough, but you see what I mean? They're just different ones, so I'm just going to put air here to get rid of it. But that's just a slightly more advanced command that you probably would have a use for. There's clone. Now clone and fill were added in the same time in the 1.8. They're very similar to each other. Let's just say I have a nice little design here. Okay, let's say this is some sort of form of art. Okay, and I want to keep it. So I'd do /fill. I mean, that's what you do if you want to fill this area, but you don't. You want to clone it. That's what clone's for. So it's the same thing when it comes to the X, Y, and Z, except there's a third Y and Z. Put this over here. Boom. We have it here. Now this is the same thing. There's some extra things. There's a lot of other stuff. You'd have to go to the wiki to do it all, but replace is a commonly used one. And if you do move, it gets rid of the old one, and things like that. Pretty simple, but of course this is one of the most useful commands that have ever been added to the game, as long as it ever. Like, it's probably only trumped by, like, clone. I mean, not clone, game mode. So, we can move on to our next command now. We've got particle, and this is the last thing we're going to do today. Particle is a very complex command. Well, not too complex, but unless you know what you're doing, or you've looked at, I mean, look at the arrow code real quick. Particle. See, X, Y, and Z, XD, YD, ZD, speed, count, mode, player, params. I mean, if I don't do this often enough, I forget about the exact syntax for it. So we do particle, and this part's easy. Particle This is when you choose it. So we're gonna do witch magic. Now we have to add the other stuff up to at least count anyway. So we're gonna do X, Y, and Z. For this, we're just gonna do tildes. We could do it at 0, 0, which would be somewhere off in the distance over there, just behind the command blocks, I think. But we're gonna do it to ourselves. This is when things get complicated. This is how far it is to yourself. So particles aren't just next to you; they expand further. So this is kind of like our relative coordinates. Now we have to add the other ones. So we're gonna do tilde 1, or no, we can just do 1, 1, and 1. That'll go up. It'll make a circle around me, pretty much, with a 1 block radius. You can make discs if you want by like changing this to a 10 and this to a 10. Actually, let's do that. And we can do speed. The particle decays and goes out. We'll do a speed of 0.01 and a count of 100. Boom. You see that? It made a long disc around me. No, that wasn't good enough for me. I want to make it a few thousand. See that? It made a disc. Poof. All the way around me. But if I wanted it just to be a circle, I'd get rid of this 10 and make it a 1. There's a lot of cool stuff you can do with particle command. Like I've made smoke and stuff, like disappearing tricks. I mean, it's really cool. It's definitely one of the more advanced commands. If you get this, you're set. You just look at the error code, and if that isn't enough, just look it up the wiki, and you should be fine. The mode, this is a little bit different. I'm not quite sure about that, what that means, but I just leave it normal. There's also who you're doing it to, and let's see, I think there's one more thing I missed. Params. Yeah, there's other things you can do to it, but that's pretty much all you need to know for the particle command. I hope this video helped. This is like pretty much the basics of commands and command blocks in general. I might do a more advanced video, I don't know, but all of the videos I do will be focusing on advanced topics. So I hope you enjoyed. I'll hope to see you in the next one.